This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand dawning, great rising, Cleveland, Ohio, and the rest of the planet. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest this morning is someone that I have known for some time. I was thinking of a title to give him, but I'm going to give him the title of friend today. So today's conversation is going to be a conversation, and it will involve details about his life. His name is Zachary Hill, and as I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, but he came up in the Cleveland area. He went to college. He ended up in the Peace Corp. At a certain point, he became employed by an insurance company that we both have in common. I also know that he is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and we're going to talk about some of the things that he is doing as a member of that organization. And we're also going to talk about his time in the Peace Corps when he had the opportunity to provide service in the country of Ghana and perhaps some other places. Welcome to Open Door with Vince Robinson, Mr. Zachary Hill. How are you today, Zachary?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Doing great.
Well,
How are you?
I'm doing great as well. I just have to preface our conversation by saying that what prompted me to give you a call is just because I noticed some of the things that you post on Facebook, and I know that based on those posts, you are an avid fan of jazz, something that we have in common, and a few other things that we have in common revolving around interests and matters of Pan-Africanism. So with that, with great enthusiasm, we'll have this conversation today. So what I do with many of my guests is I give them an opportunity to provide some details about their background, and you can share with me what you would like to about your coming up and if that involved coming up in Cleveland.
Okay. Yes, I grew up in the greater Cleveland area, partial in Cleveland, grew up kind of Lee Heights area for about the first 7 years. And we moved out to Oakwood Village when I was about 7 years old and lived out there. Saw that transition from a place that was fairly rural to a suburban community. Attended Bedford High School, and then I went to enrolled at Ohio University. So thank God there were open enrollments at that time because my high school career wasn't that great academically until the end. I decided, I better get kicking, but it was kind of late to lift the GPA up. So I looked at, at that time going to Morehouse and Fisk, but those weren't happening. So wound up at OU, and it's probably kind of one of the best, I don't know if you want to call it luck, blessings, or whatever that I had, because I was there at a time when they had a very strong African-American studies and international studies program, and I was able to jump into that, and it really just took off, man. That was probably one of the most profound things that happened. It's just most of my classes I had were with grad students, so they forced me to elevate my game. And I was quite pleased with that. And later, after that, I had wound up majoring in international relations, started off in business, but I spent most of my time in the library reading about Africa and African American, history and things. And so about my sophomore year, Ohio University started and created a baccalaureate program. They already had a master's in international affairs, so they had a number of students internationally and nationally that would come there to get a master's, but no baccalaureate. So it was easy transition. I was taking classes in African history and so on. And so when they made it a full-fledged baccalaureate program, I just transitioned over. But I was about the only one at that time, so all of my classes happened to be with grad students, and so that was a good thing because it made me elevate my game. So appreciative of that. And then I went to Peace Corps after that as a not immediately I signed up to go. It took about a year before I was able to get processed to go. But that was a good vehicle for me to continue my learnings and then also, be of, I guess, some assistance to the folks there.
So if you could describe what your experience in Ghana was like.
Man, that's a big one. I mean, it was a big experience from a personal, cultural perspective. It was the first, well, I'm not going to say first time, but it was one of the times, other than I can recall going to Alabama as a youth to, stay some weeks in the summer with my grandparents, in a predominantly Black community where your existence as a human being wasn't challenged so much. Even there, when I went to Alabama, it was in the context of still being America. So when you ventured out of the community, it was, you had, all of that. But probably the most profound thing was just being there and just being me and my color not really making a statement as to a bunch of external expectations or limitations. I just could be. And that was probably the most profound experience, is that wall that many of us build up here and are sensitive to necessarily to survive in America. I didn't need it. I could just be me. So that was probably the biggest thing that happened. I stayed, I was a Peace Corp volunteer in agriculture. So after training, we were dispersed to various villages, and I was in the Ashanti region in a village, Afamaso, which was north of Kumasi, about 30 miles, primarily agriculture, the farmers, some cocoa, but, vegetables, what we call there's a version of a plant called like a garden egg, they call it there. That's it's in the eggplant family. So a lot of farmers grew that, tomatoes and other vegetables around that people use for cooking and things like that, tomatoes, garden eggs, onions, and things of that nature. Some cocoa, number had bananas, papayas, a number of fruit as well. And then while I was there, there were a number of things about the agriculture that really you had to learn that were problematic. One was storage, being able to store food to keep it. So people weren't going to grow, there's no reason to grow on 5 hectares of tomatoes if you could only carry, because most of them carry the food in baskets on your head, to the market. If you grow 5 hectares, but you could only carry 3 hectares of worth of tomato, whatever, back to the market to be realized for either your family or well as, some income. And why grow the extra 2 that don't waste and get ate up by insects and so there was a lot of, those things had to be fixed from a bigger infrastructure level at the government level. But so I guess I say all that to say that what I realized is that let me try to do something where I can make an impact and maybe the folks need or don't do themselves, because they got that under patent. It wasn't an issue where they could grow this or knew how to grow it. It was just, it was just the realism of the system there. So I started researching and kind of land up on fish farming. And so kind of initiated a fish pond project there. And I was praying all the time that it worked out, because in the village, they have communal labor projects. So the chief of the village there had, most of the guys commit to working on this project with me to kind of build this pond. And they'll do other things common for the village, like, latrines and other things like that for the village. So I was hoping that this was successful, because they had these brothers out here working. And it was the first, I had never done one. I was just at the library reading and hope, and trying to put the idea together. So it wound up being successful, and it worked. And We got some tilapia fishlings, and it was kind of nice because we made it as a kind of part of the organic flow of the stream there. There was a stream there that people got their water from to wash as well as drink. And so we were able to kind of tie it into the whole flow of that system and drain off of that, and then run the water back into the stream down in, without. So it was kind of a neat project.
So you are in your 20s, recently graduated from college and studying, I guess, basically international things of a political nature, so to speak. But then you end up as a volunteer for the Peace Corp in Ghana, and you're spearheading projects over there. I'm just wondering what it was like for you and what it was like for them to interact with you as this brother from Cleveland, Ohio, on the other side of the world and immersed in something that was near and dear to you.
Well, it was, they used to have a saying, take lazy, take lazy, just chill. And so I really had to just chill, Vince, because, and try to understand the culture and learn from the people. And that's what I did. I really, I really wasn't that aggressive trying to start off, I'm going to do this, that, and all that. I tried to just chill and live with the people, see what they, ate and what they needed. And also just learn some of the customs and things of that nature. I was very kind of in tune to being sensitive to, what they did and not be over pushy or whatever, because I was a visitor. I looked at myself as a visitor. And what I did notice, though, man, there was so many similarities, though. And I can recall, growing up and, in church and stuff like that, in a black church and Baptist church. And I remember when we first got there, it was me and it was 5 other volunteers. They happened to be white guys. And we go to this ceremony when we were kind of graduating, because when we initially got to the country, we did training, language training, as well as agricultural training, tropical agricultural training in Ghana. And so we go to this ceremony in Aburi, and the chief and Queen Mother and council of elders were there. And we brought the brothers some schnapps, and he started to pray, and he was praying to the ancestors. But man, the cadence and the, he was like, I couldn't repeat the words, but it was like the rhythm, man. I was into the rhythm. He was like jab, jab, and the other brothers, and as he prayed, the ancestors jab, so it's jab, jab. And I can remember sitting in devotional, every Sunday morning, listening to, the deacons down on one knee and praying, and people say, well, and and it was the same thing, man. And I'm looking at my peers there, and they're looking like, wow, this is exotic. And I'm saying, wow, I'm at church.
Yeah,
I'm at home.
It was almost like like you just said, I'm at home. Even though you couldn't understand the words, there was something about the spirit that resonated with you. This is absolutely fascinating, Zach. I want to talk to you a bit more about the African experience, and then we're going to move forward and deal with some of the other things that happened to you and happened to us in the course of life. Great conversation, and we will return to it. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Belcar Community Radio. My guest is Educator and Omega Psi Phi fraternity member Zachary Hill. We'll be right back after this.
Koshin Meats is a family-owned business that has served the Cleveland area for over a century. Their staff can help you select specialty cuts of beef, poultry, pork, and other items you may not find in an ordinary grocery store like frog legs or wild jerky. They also offer a wide variety of breads, deli meats, cheeses, spices, and other specialty products. Conveniently located at 4058 St. Clair Avenue near East 41st Street, Koshin Meats is the place to go for all your cuisine needs. Call 216 881-7677 for more info or visit KoshinMeats.com. This message was brought to you by Koshin Meats and Marketplace and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Hi, this is Gerard Amir Shakir, and you're listening to 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and my conversation with Zach Hill. He is an educator, a retired insurance professional, although I believe you're still teaching things that relate to insurance. So we're not going to retire you from insurance totally, unlike myself, because when I left that company, I left insurance in my rearview mirror. But anyway, you were talking about your experience in Africa and discovering the commonalities between the brothers and sisters over there and the brothers and sisters over here. And I have to ask you, how did your being there change your perception of what was there before you got there?
You know what? That's a tricky because I had immersed myself in my upbringing, man. Since out in elementary school, I've been studying Africa and African customs. So I don't know if there was a big change, but affirmation. I would call it more affirmation of things I had read and seen and believed. And I, when I was in college, I met a lot of Africans that I befriended me and vice versa. But it really started off in elementary school, man. I found a book. I think it was, I don't even remember the title. I think it was called Africa Past and Present, but I'm not sure because Basil Davidson, of English professor, wrote one. But when I found that book, man, I kept it my third grade year. I kept taking it out like a Bible because I'm reading about these great African empires in Egypt and Kush and all of that. And man, I was like, wow. So I went to at that time I was going to a predominantly white elementary school. And, I don't know if you ever, they do this round robin thing. Something occasionally teachers ask, where you're from and ancestors, and the white kids, I'm Irish and I'm German and I'm Austrian and this and that. And then it was kind of interesting. They would kind of like skip over the black kids for apparently not maybe to embarrass us, the few of us or whatever. And after reading that book, man, I was like, I'm in fourth grade. Like I'm raising my hand when they're doing this. Don't skip over me. Don't skip over me. I'm saying, so she said, okay, all right, Marie, my folks from Africa. And that everybody had this deer in the headlights look like, either regret, sadness, embarrassment for me. And I'm like, hey, I ain't embarrassed by nothing. Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know what great empires and things and how we related and how the foundation of a lot of what you guys are standing on was, came out of Africa. And so I was just dying to tell it and shout it out, and I think it's so by the time I got to Africa, it was really affirmation, man. And I learned some nuanced things, some detailed things, like I said, like the ceremonies brought me back home. I wasn't necessarily expecting those type of experiences, but once I was there, I understood how Black Americans organized the church, man. It was like the village, man. The pastor was the priest. It was the,
chief.
The chief, not the priest, but the chief. Yeah. That's how they organized. It made sense to me. It all resonated because what are you going to do when you land to a strange thing? You're going to try to recreate methods and methodology similar to what you be at home to make it as close to home as you are. So they just reestablished the church. They might have had a different religion and whatnot, but they reestablished the church organizationally and in a way to what they knew when they left. Because somebody's grandmama's grandmama was African, at some point. He came straight from Africa. So, those things hit me, man, and made me, just realize certain similarities and stuff. And then I had the, privilege of being, making some very lifelong friends there who befriended me. And I've continued to make the relations, go back to Ghana. Daughter went to school there, University of Ghana. Was able to take her back and introduce her to some of my friends who kind of looked after her while she was going to school there. the University of Ghana and stuff. So, I would say my visit back was more, my visit there was more affirmation of things I had read and learned and strengthened my, understanding.
Yes. So typically, we have been taught that we're not African. We've been taught to look down upon Africa and Africans because we haven't really learned the rich cultural history of the continent and the 55 countries that are there presently. I'm curious what you think brothers and sisters in America could learn as you did from Africans.
Well, I think part of what we've been talking about, I think just the similarities in terms of, that's how we inherit, how we approach a number of things, how we organize our church, how we, some of our music, some of our culture. And, it's deeper in certain areas. In others, you go in the South, it's probably deeper just because we were kept segregated, so we were able to maintain more of those, what I call Africanisms, than what we were as we, maybe integrated more and more. I go to the South Island, Sabella people on South Carolina, and that's where we initially trained at. And that was a perfect place because that was still maintained a lot of those West African things. But I think people can learn, and you have to just, the education, man, we have to re-educate ourselves really. Because we haven't been told, and a lot of this, what we've been told is mythology, basically white supremacy mythology, and we've been affected by that as well. So we're looking for, sometimes that's been elevated as the standard, and a lot of times we're looking at that standard and trying to reproduce that amongst ourselves, and wasting, in my opinion, a lot of time because that's not who we are. And I think once you learn the greatness of what has been accomplished out of Africa, and I even tell people to read. They talk about Greek. They started Greek culture as if it was the start of everything, democracy, all these other principles. That's how we are indoctrinated. But I challenge people. They basically hearing hearsay. Even in the white professors and teachers are hearing somebody that told them. And if you read the Greeks themselves, Herodotus, the people they claim to be the father of history, if you read them, they'll tell you. You read them. You read Christopher Columbus himself, and he tell you how or the people that were on there, they'll tell you how they treated the Native Americans and, the colors and things that they saw. But you don't even get that narrative from the people who were there. The Greeks will tell you these folks were, in Egypt, they went there, they went to learn in Alexandria, and these people were black. Okay, and brown people.
So true. Pythagoras is given credit for the Pythagorean theorem, but it came from Imhotep. It came from Egypt. And again, he didn't take credit, but people who came after him gave him credit. And it was really kind of to diminish what we did in terms of bringing civilization to uncivilized people. They look at us as being uncivilized, but in fact, they were the ones who were uncivilized. And I really like the term that you mentioned, white supremacy mythology. I call it pseudo white supremacy because my perspective is that it does not exist, even though we amplify it every time we use that term. So I think it's really more a psychosis than anything else.
Yes.
But yes, that great experience. And the fact that your daughter was able to experience what you experienced in terms of being there and having more of a global view of us rather than an us and them. After having been to Africa several times and encountering Africans in different countries using the same term, one love, one people, the sooner we realize that we're all one people, despite the divisions that we create for ourselves, the sooner we'll be able to unify and move forward to erase some of the damage that this white supremacy psychosis has inflicted upon the world. So you spent time in Africa and then you came back to the States. What happened then?
Well, I came back, kind of ironically, I left. Peace Corp really at that time, I didn't know I had left, but there was a family reunion in Detroit. Long and short, I was able to exchange some money on the street, and they used to pay us the Peace Corp. They paid us in CDs, which is the official currency of Ghana, but at that time, it wasn't reflective of what the market value really was in commerce on the street internationally. So they would pay us in dollars and with U.S. dollars once a quarter on what they call these vacation travel allowance. And I took my travel allowance and went on the street and exchanged it, and I was able to buy a round trip ticket from Ghana Airways back home and to London. And then my mom. I met a cat down at the University of Science and Technology. He was a Fulbright professor, but he was a ham radio operator. And then he connected me one Sunday with a guy in Nashville who called collecting my mom. And I told her, give me a ticket from London to, back to Cleveland. And, I'll take care of you later. But she did, and I went to a family reunion. But when I went to a family reunion, I was trying to decide. I was almost at the end of my Peace Corps journey, and I was trying. It was 2 years, and I was thinking about staying another year because, Ronald Reagan was in, and I was like, I don't know if I want to come back to this place. But I happened to get sick, and just a carryover from being worn out myself, really, man, just, not really taking care of myself. I had malaria a couple of times. And, I would just, at the time party around 20, hanging out and stuff. And my body said, hey, you had enough, shutting you down. So I was here when that happened. And I went to the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong. They just kept taking blood from me and stuff like that. And I kept getting better. I just needed to relax and chill out and get rid of some, all that while I was doing and heal. And so I didn't wind up going back. And so I thought about getting into international trade. That's what I wanted to do. And so I looked and I saw that Otis Moss Sr., who was a pastor at Olivet at that time. I don't know if he is still, but he was a pastor at Olivet. And, I know he had all these associations, but he was on the Cleveland Port Authority board. And so I just tried to cold contact him, and he, he didn't know who I was. And for a while, it was kind of like, okay, who's this young cat keep calling me and stuff? But I just kept calling him and, said, hey. And I guess he thought I was, gave me credit for being bold enough to keep calling him. So he gave me an audience. Hey, come on down to the office, we talk. He took me to the Port Authority at that time. I think Frank Russo was director. It was, recessionary times and stuff. They didn't really have anything going on, but I did get a chance to meet him. And a couple weeks later, he called me up, said, hey, this is Reverend Moss called me up and said, hey, young fella, I have a guy in my congregation who's looking for, insurance people. And I needed a job, man. So that's kind of how I fell into insurance. I took a call from, one of his congregants who was a sales manager. And I went, and that kind of opened my eyes to some training. And then I met I had been dating prior to going to Ghana. My wife I had been dating, and then her dad was a State Farm agent. And, I resisted doing that with State Farm until I was at Met for a while. And then, started working in the insurance industry and then kind of stayed there.
So that's how it happened. I'm going to tell my story when we get back, and I'm not going to say we work for the same insurance company, but it'll come out in the wash anyway. Okay. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Zach Hill, and we're going to talk insurance when we get back. We'll be right back on this Burton Bell Carr Community Radio Station.
Ohio, a new choice for Medicaid is here. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The name you can trust because we're the plan that plans on everything. From 3 a.m. fevers to life-saving medicines to care wherever you need it, even the unexpected. We've been caring for Ohioans for over 80 years. So choose Anthem for your Medicaid plan. Visit anthemohio.com today.
This was brought to you by Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Insurance and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united. Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. The cat is out the bag. Yeah, I used to work at the Good Neighbor, and my friend and colleague Zachary Hill did the same. His path was a little bit different from mine, but similar circumstances. You know, life throws you lemons, and you have to make lemonade. My story is that I had been in broadcasting for 8 years, and the last station that I worked for eliminated my position because of an ownership change. And I ended up going to an employment agency, and that company was the first one to bite, and I got stuck for 27 years. What's your story?
Yes. Hey, I was there, man. I call it the kind of I used to call it the methadone treatment. They just, you just gotta. There were so many times I was on my way out of there. I mean, my plan. I went to law school. Matter of fact. I think while I was a claim rep, I went to law school. And what it did open up to me to a lot of different things that were out there. In the claims arena, I saw experts. I thought about at one time, engineering. I saw people, fire losses that we paid for, utilizing the expert opinions of, different people to look into things. And then I'd always had an interest in law school. So I did actually enter into John Marshall Law School at Cleveland State and had begun taking courses. And that was probably about 7 months before I had an opportunity to get promoted from a claim rep to claims, manager, superintendent, or whatever. And that's what ceased my law school because I couldn't combine because I was doing 4 days a week every evening from 6 then. I just couldn't couple the two. And then I called it methadone treatment. I was making a little bit more money and family, and stuff like that. And so I found myself just, in the mix. But what I did do, man, and the reason one I find myself in the mix was folks like yourselves. I always been about reproduction and advancement of our people wherever I was at. And I said, well, you know what, whether I was in banking or whether I was this, whether I was that, I would really be trying to, help our folk or, and whatnot. So I just figured that's what I would try to do at my best of my ability within the context of where I was at. Insurance business is try to, share as much as I could. And, we did some things. I mean, I was, we did some first and then, we took on some things that, we had our own little unit of, more than 50% Black folks, which was rare at, where we were at. And, I know for a fact, a lot of folks didn't think that was going to survive, because I'd be in the meetings, by myself. But, we made it happen, man. We made it happen. We did our business and, it was a vehicle. I look at, sometimes, like you said, you make lemons, you take lemon, you make lemonade. And sometimes you got to ride the vehicle that you're on, keep some oil in it so it can take you to where you want to go, even if, whether you're in love with the vehicle per se, but that's the transportation that might take you to other things that you are desirous of doing. And so I think, that's what it happens. So,
well, I want to personally thank you right now because you said that your mission was to help other people and you absolutely did help me. I mean, at the time you were my superintendent or team manager or whatever the term was back then. And I inherited a workload that was given to me as a result of discrimination within the company. And I had to work from under that heaping pile of claims. And I never forget, I came in your office one day and, we just had a heart-to-heart talk. And I told you that I wanted to come up with a plan to eliminate this situation, and I pledged to come in and work on weekends and, work late and so forth. And I whittled it down, and then we went through a transition, and thanks to you, I got another position that enabled me to be right in between the front line and the line that you were in terms of supervision. And just because of that, the last years of my career were extremely rewarding financially, and it was all because of you. So thank you, Zachary Hill.
Hey, bro, I appreciate it, man. That's all it was. That was where I really, I had mercenary interests as well, I had family, but man, it really, what kept me there, I would have left in a heartbeat, but what kept me there is, like I said, I'm going to cast my bucket where it is. I'm going to try to help as many, particularly our folks who wanted to be, who I can assist, man, and, try to help them, do whatever they want to do, but use this vehicle to do that, man. And that's why I really stayed, and what I tried to do to, best my ability to,
yes. So
shield all this stuff.
Yeah. So, being in the corporate environment and having to navigate what it was like to be a quote unquote minority. I mean, the basis for my employment was the fact that I was classified as a minority and they needed minorities to fill quotas. You were in management, and I know when you looked around, a lot of the other brown faces that you saw were females. So it was like you were really kind of privileged in that sense, because my recollection is that there were more black females than there were black males, but sometimes you were the only person in the room. What was your experience like navigating corporate culture as a black person?
Man, it was, well, Vince, I had some training. I'm going to put it this way, because growing up and going to Bedford schools, it was predominantly white. I took classes. I didn't even go to my concerts, because what I saw was all of the brothers and sisters that they had there in general math and nothing wrong with that, a shop or whatever, but no advanced courses. And so I didn't go to my concert. I never went to a concert. I thought, I said, because I saw no worth in it. I said, they directing all these brothers and sisters there. So I went on and, I could read, and you got so many credits. So none along and less, I've mapped my own thing. And so I was the only person in advanced biology and chemistry and physics and, algebra and calculus, pre-cal and stuff like that. And what that did is prepare me, to be used to being that only person in the room. And I learned that, this is what my experience is, that you got to be careful of being the exceptional Negro, because what folks will do, my experience has been they try to peel you away from your folk and try to make you be maybe appear to be more than what you really are, or some specialty or something like that. And I said, well, these my cousins and my friends and stuff, they're smart and just like me, or they're the ones who love me. So I never really bought into that. So I always wanted to stay grounded with my folks. And even when I got to there, I was used to being the only one, and having read, going back to, like I said, reading stuff about Africa, I was extremely confident in who I was. I looked at them sometimes with some sorrow, because I looked at them as being ignorant as to who we were and our capabilities. And so I didn't take on maybe their image of me as being some poverty case or inferior or whatever. I looked at myself as like, hey, you're the one who don't know. I know. And so, that I had to, that's kept me girded while I was dealing with those, type of things, man. But I also knew there was only a limit to where I could go. And I accepted that, because I'm not the best person that can continue to go up the chain in corporate America, because I can only, I don't know if Ben is not even right. Well, I can only assimilate so much, because I can't give up, who I am as a black man or black African. So there are certain things that you may have to give up, or that I stood for or wanted to be somewhat vocal on, and did. And I knew that came with a sacrifice, to be able to lobby and say certain things, and I would say them. And I knew the consequence of some of those things would be I would not go any further, but a certain degree further. because I wasn't willing, it just wasn't me. There were other brothers and sisters might be better suited for that.
In essence, you didn't want to sell out.
Right. I didn't. And there's some people who paid some other ways, but I couldn't do it, bro. I couldn't do it. So, I mean, I knew what my limitations were, and I would fight where I was at and stuff. So that was that. And then I did other things like this. I taught insurance on the side. I always tried to do other things, man, so that that one thing wasn't, had a stranglehold on all of our, the financial existence, that I had other avenues that I could, utilize to help support where I wanted to be. Yeah.
So what was the impetus behind your decision to leave?
Well, I left State Farm before I left it. It was another challenge. This challenge that came up would happen to be, I left my original, that one company, and went over to another one, Nationwide. And it was just a greater opportunity to see at a higher level. I had an opportunity to work directly with the VP, the regional vice president of Nationwide at that time. She was head of Ohio, West Virginia region, and I had the opportunity to work directly for her, and just to see another level. And here again, it was almost like going to Africa, because I had read, and I mean, I knew kind of what it was, but I hadn't really experienced it, kind of like there. So it was more reaffirmation than just surprise, because I had prepared myself by reading. And that was the key for me, man. I read, and nobody gives you, you don't have to have permission to learn by reading. You can just learn. And, you don't have to ask nobody. You want to learn it, you go read it, read some more, and become as well-versed in that topic or area. So I had read about, management, economy and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to see and experience it at that level and see the conversations. And it was more reaffirmation. And so that's why I did. It was another challenge. I went over there, and then I kind of went on my own and started teaching, which I had been doing on the side for some years. And I got a contract to teach insurance and estimating with a company that was operating in Springfield that did water mitigation. And that was cool too, kind of with Clark's arrangement with Clark State. And so that worked out really good for a couple of years. I knew that was going to end. After they, got a chance to absorb, as much knowledge as they could, they would internalize, but that was good. And then since then, I just, I've been working, teaching insurance licensing classes, life and health, P&C right now. And I enjoy it, man, because the sharing information piece for me has always been a very big of who I am. And so that's what I'm doing right now in that space. And so it's cool.
Yes. Well, you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about education and self-education, because the education system can be limiting in certain ways because it's so narrow sometimes in its focus. But when you take it upon yourself to inform yourself by reading books and creating your own educational paradigm, it can be something that is extremely liberating. So kudos to you for having the foresight to do that, and also the motivation. Sometimes it's a case of when one door closes, another one opens. And so, again, you were able to open doors for yourself and make some moves and continue in your movement forward. I also mentioned that you are a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and I know just based on posts that I've seen that you are doing some great things within that realm. So I want to shift gears and talk about some of that work, and also talk about the future for Zachary Hill, and we'll do that when we get back right here on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Belcar Community Radio. Back in a minute.
What's happening, Cleveland? This is Detective Felton Collier, and I am the lead public safety recruiter for the City of Cleveland's Department of Public Safety. Are you interested in a job with fantastic pay and benefits? How about a change from day-to-day office life? Look no further, because Cleveland's Division of Police is now accepting applications for police officers. Why not enter the exciting field of law enforcement? We are constantly changing and progressing for the benefit of our communities. The Division of Police offers up to a $5,000 sign-on bonus. The academy pay is almost $25 per hour, and there is tuition reimbursement for those who have completed Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy. Plus, If you are a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces and or hold a college degree, you can receive additional salary incentives. Call 216-623-5233 to speak with our recruiters, or go to clevelandohio.gov/jobs. Apply today and join our team.
This message was brought to you by Cleveland Public Safety Department and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Hi, this is Tammy Payton, the CEO and founder of Pillars to Success Incorporated. You are listening to 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and my guest, Zachary Hill. He is an insurance professional in that he is teaching folks insurance right now, but he's also an educator in that sense. And he's also a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. You mentioned that you went to Ohio University, which was actually my first choice for college, but I wasn't going there for Pan-African studies or anything having to do with Africa. I wanted to go there because I heard that they had a great television and radio program, but I ended up going to Kent State instead, and guess what happened? I minored in Pan-African studies, so I got it anyway, and it was a great place. You know, I tell this to folks all the time. As often as I can, Black History Month started at Kent State University. Carter G. Woodson started the week. Kent State started the month, and then President Ford made it official in 1976. But back to Omega Psi Phi. Did you start at OU?
No, I didn't, Vince. To be honest with you, I didn't. I was fully engrossed in the African and Pan-African movement, and particularly the South African liberation movement, which we had, as well as ours, but just from this perspective, the South African liberation movement was strong. You had armed struggles going on in Southern Africa, in the former Portuguese colonies, Angola, which was intense, Mozambique. You had Guinea-Bissau, West Africa, and you had, the Republic, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. Those were really heated battles going on at that time. So that's where my focus, and it was a more generalized Black focus. I did admire the brothers, the few ones who were down there, and thought if I ever did, go that way, that I probably would, explore Omega, but I wasn't really that interested in any of the fraternal organization. I had no history. My parents were college graduates, so I didn't really have that history in that, and that was my focus at that time. I arrived at Omega Psi Phi later on when I came to Cleveland, and in about 1988, started, looking at some of the things that they were, some of the brothers were doing in the community there, and then that struck my interest, and then the kind of rest, went through the process in 1988, and so it's 30-something years, 36 years in May, and so I've been a member for 35 years plus now, and so that's what the initial piece was, but. Subsequently, man, it's been a really, a good thing. I mean, we've, when I was in Cleveland there, we were involved in Christmas baskets, to folks who were in need and stuff like that. We were doing a number of things in that space, and continued on in the summer. We continued on doing a number of different community projects and so on. So, that's kind of my initial introduction.
Yes. So I have to ask this question as someone who has observed the Greek letter organizations from a distance. In light of the fact that you didn't have that experience when you were on campus at Ohio University, you probably didn't go through the same kind of experience that folks in that position did. Do you think that you missed out on anything because you didn't have that experience?
Yeah, you know what? There's definitely a difference in experience, in certain experience in the terms of being an undergrad, and the kind of camaraderie and stuff that they gather there. Because, even when we're here, we're grown men, and we forge a camaraderie with the people that were, who happened to go through the process with me. And then the process probably, might be a little bit different, though we experience some similarities, I would say. But yeah, it is what it is. You meet, like you said before, when you said you make lemons, you take lemon, make lemonade where you're at. And that's what that's what we've done. And then, we've, have evolved because of some of the same brothers that, who were made in their undergrad are now, they're the same people that I am now. The cats are 60-some years old or 60-some years old. They just have a few more years in it, and they're doing it. The ones who are active, we're all doing the same thing and participating in the same type of, situation. So right now we have here, I'm in Columbus area, and we have a number of programs. Got a mentoring program going on that we mentor young men and try to introduce them to a number of different things that might be helpful for them in their growth, financial, health, education, and just a nice give and take on what it is to be a man, and particularly a black man in the United States, and some of the tools and things and skills that you might need. Some of us got those through our own. We're fortunate enough to have dads, and some of these young men do, and some of them don't. And then some of us who did not get the benefit of hearing some of this information just because of, old school communication wasn't, sometimes in some of our homes, we didn't share some of those, learning lessons. So, or until people got extremely, older, that they began to share those information pieces like that. So, we're doing a number of things there. We have clothing drives. We've had over the winter. We got gloves. We try to help in terms of feeding the community and other outreach things to help our communities.
Yes. Some of the criticisms that come about the Greek letter organizations is that they are part of the boule, that somehow that they separate themselves from others in the black community. What are your thoughts about how Greek letter organizations are perceived by the general population of black folk?
Well, you know what? I can't speak to what everybody else thinks, though I do know those sentiments are out there. I will just say that what I do know is that there are a number of us brothers, in particular, I know and I speak to Megas, who really try to target the least of us. And that's one of the things about this organization. It tries to target the least of us in terms of, assistance, while, helping, others, because everybody, it's not a situation where everybody that, everybody can use some assistance in some of the things that we do, but we target that. But I don't live that way. Never have. That's even how I grew up, with the corporate thing, where I put checks where I wasn't going to do, but, do certain things. What I, tried to live by in terms of when I was in the Peace Corp, when I was at State Farm, is trying to create and help our people. So that's what I've always been about. And to that degree, I try not to, dwell too much about what people think, to see what we do. There's a lot of talking out there with a lot of stuff, but just see what we do, and I can answer, with that, you see what we do, and then you can make your decisions and judgments on that and stuff like that. And then a lot of people, rightfully or wrongfully, they've had different experiences, and then a lot of people just do a lot of talking.
Yes.
And that's the realm that they're beginning is talking, but, let's just ante up, see what's going on.
Well, yes, it's so true. I think you have to judge folk by their works. So if you can't say that Omega Sci-Fi is not doing anything in the community, but the other thing I just wanted to mention was that, sometimes even though some may take a dim view of Boulé, folks within that realm, so to speak, have done significant and meaningful things for the community overall. So we can't really afford to cast dispersions on folk just because of the station that they have achieved in life.
Yes.
I think it was Du Bois, as some say, who came up with this idea of the talented 10th. And we could disparage the talented 10th, but we can't take away from the benefit that they have provided to our society overall. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to rewind a little bit because I'm really intrigued by the idea of intergenerational discourse. And I know in the mentorship situation, it's about what the mentor can share with the mentee. But I'm curious about what you get from mentees.
Man, I think that's an interesting question. I even sub, man, sometimes just so I can keep a pulse on what the younger people are doing. I have a granddaughter that also helps me. There's some self-interest in there, just like, okay, what is their mindset? So what is her mindset? So I can be a better grandparent, to understand where they're coming from. I think you can learn from anybody, man. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you with the youth, man, I learned I'm a better communicator and sharing of information than I would if I wasn't, because there's a number of ways to communicate. There are different types of diversity of people, how they get information, how they absorb information, how to speak to where you're more likely to be heard and being able to shift, have more bandwidth. So they teach you, you could be communicating the same thing, whether it's about sense of self and Black history or whatever, and sense of self, but you may have to communicate that in a different format. So they teach us how to communicate with them if you listen. And then with that, for me, I'm not going to speak with everybody, but for me, I've become better at it, of communicating, because of listening and engaging with different people at different age groups. I'm just more comfortable with delivering information because I think I can be more flexible, because however you want it, however you come, I think because of that experience, having dealt with other people across the board, then I'm better able to, shift and say, okay, maybe I needed to present it this way, or maybe, and understanding, because everybody is not the same. I'm more understanding of people as well. So they keep me grounded that way. And like I said, in Peace Corp, you learn from that, even not that young, intergenerational per se, but, I probably learned as much from the people I worked with in Ghana than maybe I gave back. They just had a profound impact in my life in terms of how we can get along and how we can have relative peace amongst each other.
Yes.
And they taught me a number of things. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just recalling that you talked about your Peace Corps experience and how you were immersed in agriculture, and just reflecting over some posts that I've seen on Facebook. You at one point were growing food at your house,
yes.
Doing gardening, and you still do. Not surprised to hear that. So, yes, I'm sure it was a very valuable experience. And I have to tell you, I'm jealous, brother, because I need to get to growing stuff around here, particularly in light of the projected food shortages and the need for us to have organic, locally grown stuff. It's a very valuable tool to have, and I'm happy for you, and just looking forward to perhaps doing it myself. I put a potato in a basket of soil that had a plant in it that was meaningful to me, and now it's growing. So that's an inspiration to me to keep doing what I'm doing. And who knows, but before it's all over, I'll have a nice garden in my backyard. Zachary Hill, it has been a pleasure to have this conversation with you, brother. And I wish you much success in your future endeavors, and, much success in the future.
Okay, brother. Same with you, man.
I sit here and admire from afar, not on your posts, but, you're launching Larchmere Arts and what you're doing in the community, in the arts community, and all of that in the music community, man. So I keep eyes on you and stuff like that. We got, hopefully we'll get a chance to hook up here in the not too distant future, man. And I want to visit your spot, and then they come listen to you guys play some music and stuff like that. But yeah, keep it up, man. Just those are kind of things that we're living. You're living who you are and living our culture, and it makes it real, man. People are watching.
Thank you, brother. Much appreciated. And to those of you who are listening, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day. Peace.